So, Ben, I mean, I guess you mentioned at the start there could be some intervention, I guess, into the property market from government regulators to slow down the market. And maybe investors will be the first ones they target because they're an easy one to target, right? Because we want first home buyers. We don't mind people upgrading, because that's great for, it's houses, it's not investors. But what do you think they're going to potentially look to target them with? Because, interest-only loans was the first thing they really targeted back in 2014 because they were out of control. Half of loans were going on interest only. It's not only an issue for the individual, but it's an issue for the whole economy if they don't start paying these loans back. But, they're 1 in 10 loans or 1 in 8 loans right now. So that's not an issue. Investors are still, the loan growth still very slow, nowhere near like it was, in the past. So what are you sort of things, from the investor side that they need to be aware of that they could start to target, coming up?
Look, I mean, the Reserve Bank of Australia have learnt very, very well about the signalling that they put into the market. So I think it was probably 15 years ago where the Reserve Bank started to be a little bit more public in terms of their announcements and basically what they were projecting into the marketplace. And they used that as an instrument to also potentially control the financial markets and give some direction and so forth. What we saw with APRA, with a macroprudential interference in the marketplace, with, first of all, as you say, speed humps, growing loan books by greater than 10% for investors for interest only, we did see that more broadly work. So the perception now in the marketplace and potentially throughout the business community and even the investor community, that if APRA signals that they're going to make a change, then technically they're going to watch what happens to the psychology of the buyer. And so I'm hoping that they won't need to do the same measures that they introduced last time, but just that signalling alone could hopefully then dampen the level of demand and interest from investors. Not all investors, but I suspect the ones who are thinking this is a quick kill and property's easy and everyone makes money out of property. So they may introduce something like that throttle on loan book growth for investors, that can't be more than 10% month on month. And just that could just be enough to basically take the momentum. And we'll see that showing up in the sentiment surveys and those types of things. So because we knew it worked, it took the demand completely out of the marketplace for investors in 2018. As everyone started to understand basically what was going on, and all of the fear-mongering that went with that around switching from interest-only to P&I, and there was going to be this sort of fiscal cliffs in households and everyone wasn't going to be able to afford to make those repayments. Well, we knew that was a load of rubbish, but it had its intended purpose in terms of scaring the market. So I'd like to think that if they have an interest in this particular space, that we get that scaring of the market first before we actually get the implementation, which is effectively, that interference.
But do you think we forget? I mean, all of that it's recent history. We all know it because we live and breathe property. We're in this day in, day out. But, new investors, for instance, wouldn't really probably be paying any attention. Existing investors, will they now, in this face of rising prices and FOMO and all the rest of it, do you think that they forget that that's a possibility?
Yes, I mean, some would, but I mean, hopefully you're not going out and spending $500,000 or $1 million without doing some due diligence and asking for some professional advice would be my, recommendation to people.